Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff, wind whipping against your face as you prepare to leap into the unknown. But instead of fear for your safety, what grips you is something far more insidious, a paralyzing dread that someone might be watching, judging, whispering about how foolish or brave or reckless you look. Would they approve? Would they applaud? Or worse, would they laugh? Suddenly, the fall itself no longer matters. It's their opinion that holds you back. Why do we tether ourselves so tightly to the invisible gaze of others? Why does the approval of strangers carry such weight in our lives? Here lies one of humanity's greatest paradoxes. We crave freedom, yet willingly imprison ourselves within the confines of other people's expectations. Isn't freedom supposed to feel liberating? Then why does it often leave us feeling suffocated by doubt and anxiety? Consider this unsettling truth. Every problem you've ever faced, every sleepless night spent ruminating over an unkind word, every moment of hesitation before taking action has been rooted in the same primal fear. It's not failure, rejection, or even loss that haunts us most deeply. No, it's simpler than that. At its core, it's the gnawing worry that others will think less of us. This concern for external validation doesn't just shape our actions, it shapes who we are. And yet, isn't it absurd that something so intangible could wield such power over our lives? Let's pause here and ask, what if the very thing we believe defines us, our need for acceptance, is actually the barrier keeping us from true happiness? What if the relentless pursuit of being liked isn't merely exhausting, but fundamentally flawed? After all, can anyone truly live authentically while constantly seeking permission to exist? Or are we doomed to perform on a stage where the audience never fully claps, leaving us perpetually unsatisfied? The philosopher Alfred Adler once proposed that human beings are driven not by past traumas, but by future goals. He believed that every emotion, thought, and behavior serves a purpose, a goal we set, whether consciously or unconsciously. If that's true, then consider this chilling possibility. Could your unhappiness stem not from circumstances beyond your control, but from a secret goal buried deep within you? A goal to avoid rejection at any cost, even if it means sacrificing your own voice, dreams, and desires? Pause again. Think about the last time you chose silence over speaking up, compliance over defiance, conformity over individuality. Did you make those choices because they aligned with your values, or because you feared being disliked? Now imagine carrying that burden through life, letting it dictate everything from your career path to your closest relationships. Is it worth it? More importantly, is it inevitable? Here's the crux of the matter. To find happiness, you must first confront the idea that freedom comes not from universal approval, but precisely the opposite, from embracing the courage to be disliked. Freedom, after all, is inherently lonely. It demands that you step away from the crowd, refusing to let their applause or scorn dictate your next move. But how does one summon such courage? And what happens when you finally take that step? These questions linger like shadows, waiting to be illuminated, because beneath them lies a deeper revelation, one that will challenge everything you thought you knew about happiness, identity, and the human condition. Let's dive further into the labyrinth of the mind to uncover why we cling so desperately to approval, and why letting go may be the only way forward. Why does the specter of disapproval haunt us so relentlessly? To unravel this mystery, we must journey into the labyrinth of human psychology and philosophy, a realm where thinkers like Alfred Adler have long grappled with questions about why we behave as we do. According to Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga in The Courage to be Disliked, our fixation on external validation isn't merely a superficial flaw. It is a deeply ingrained mechanism shaped by millennia of evolution, societal conditioning, and personal choices. But what if these forces shaping us are not immutable truths, but constructs we can dismantle? Adler's groundbreaking work provides a foundation for understanding how goals, not past traumas, dictate our lives. He posited that every thought, emotion, or action serves a purpose, propelling us toward an objective we've consciously or unconsciously chosen. For instance, consider someone who avoids social gatherings out of shyness. Is shyness truly innate, or is it a strategy devised to avoid rejection? Kishimi and Koga argue that emotions such as fear or anxiety aren't random afflictions. They arise because they serve a goal. In this case, the person's true aim might be to evade judgment, even at the cost of meaningful connection. This perspective shifts the locus of control inward. You are not a passive victim of your feelings, but their architect. But why would anyone choose unhappiness over freedom? Here lies another paradox, one rooted in education and cultural norms. From childhood, we are taught through systems of reward and punishment that compliance equals safety. A gold star for good behavior, scolding for disobedience. These early lessons embed within us the belief that approval is survival. Over time, this mindset calcifies into a worldview where self-worth becomes contingent upon others' opinions. Yet, as Kishimi and Koga remind us, living under someone else's yardstick is a Faustian bargain. Each step taken to please others pulls you further away from authenticity, leaving behind fragments of who you could have been. Consider the toll this takes on identity. When your life revolves around gaining approval, you cease to exist independently. Instead, you become a mirror reflecting back what others want to see. And herein lies the tragedy. No matter how hard you try, universal approval remains elusive. People will always judge differently, hold conflicting standards, and prioritize values alien to yours. So, when the pursuit of validation fails, and fail it inevitably does, what happens next? Often, individuals retreat into resignation, convincing themselves that something intrinsic makes them unworthy of love or respect. They trade one impossible goal, gaining approval, for another, convincing themselves they're flawed. Both paths lead to the same destination: misery. Moreover, seeking approval transforms relationships into battlegrounds. Life becomes a zero-sum game where another's success diminishes your own chances of being recognized. Imagine two colleagues vying for a promotion. If one succeeds, does the other rejoice or seethe with envy? Kishimi and Koga suggest that the latter response stems from viewing relationships as competitions rather than collaborations. This adversarial mindset poisons interactions, fostering resentment instead of mutual support. Unhappy people often expect reciprocity in relationships, seeing kindness as transactional. When expectations aren't met, bitterness festers. Consider the birthday party scenario. One friend organizes a grand celebration, only to feel betrayed when the gesture isn't reciprocated. Was the act of generosity genuine, or was it a calculated investment expecting returns? Such dynamics erode trust and deepen isolation. Yet, beneath these layers of dysfunction lies a glimmer of hope. What if the problem isn't external circumstances, but the lens through which we perceive them? Kishimi and Koga propose that happiness begins when we reject the tyranny of conditional approval and embrace contribution as its replacement. True fulfillment comes not from being praised but from believing oneself useful to others. However, this shift requires courage, a willingness to redefine success on your terms, irrespective of societal applause. It demands accepting that while some may dislike you, their disapproval doesn't diminish your inherent value. This revelation invites deeper inquiry. How does one cultivate such courage? What tools can help break free from the invisible chains binding us to others' judgments? These questions beckon us forward, urging exploration of counterintuitive strategies and radical mindset shifts. Because embedded within the answers lies the promise of liberation, not just from others' opinions, but from the prison of self-doubt itself. Picture this. You wake up one morning, and as you glance in the mirror, you don't see your reflection staring back at you. Instead, there's a crowd, a cacophony of faces, each whispering their verdict on who you are, what you should wear, how you should act. It's an unsettling image, isn't it? Yet, for many of us, this is not far from reality. Our lives are silently shaped by an invisible architect, societal conditioning, cognitive biases, and cultural expectations that dictate our choices without us even realizing it. These forces aren't external. They live within us, subtly steering our emotions, decisions, and sense of self. And while they masquerade as protectors, shielding us from rejection or failure, they are, in truth, architects of our unhappiness. For example, one particularly insidious bias is the spotlight effect, which tricks us into believing that everyone around us notices and judges our every move. Did I stumble walking into the room? Did my voice crack during that presentation? Surely everyone noticed, but did they really? Research shows we consistently overestimate how much others focus on us. This bias feeds directly into our fear of being disliked, amplifying its power until it becomes a suffocating presence in our minds. Combine this with another bias, the negativity bias, and suddenly, one disapproving glance outweighs 10 approving smiles. We're wired to prioritize negative feedback because evolution taught us that survival depended on avoiding threats. But in modern society, where social ostracism rarely equates to life or death consequences, this wiring traps us in cycles of anxiety and self-doubt. Cultural conditioning plays an equally potent role. From childhood, we're trained to seek approval through systems of reward and punishment. A gold star for good behavior, praise for high grades, scolding for disobedience. These mechanisms embed within us the belief that love and acceptance must be earned. Over time, this transactional view of relationships seeps into adulthood, warping our interactions. Consider workplace dynamics. How often do people suppress innovative ideas out of fear they won't be well received? Or friendships, where kindness is offered with strings attached, expecting reciprocity. Kishimi and Koga argue that such conditional exchanges erode trust and deepen isolation. When relationships become battlegrounds of comparison and competition, no one truly wins. Neurologically, these patterns are reinforced by dopamine-driven reward circuits. Approval triggers pleasurable sensations, creating a temporary high. But like any addiction, chasing validation leaves us perpetually unsatisfied. Why? Because external approval is inherently unstable. It depends on factors beyond our control. As Kishimi and Koga point out, no matter how hard you try, universal approval remains elusive. Someone will always dislike you, criticize you, or fail to meet your expectations. So, when earning approval becomes impossible, what happens next? According to Kishimi and Koga, unhappy individuals react by adopting a new goal, convincing themselves they are fundamentally flawed. By embracing this limiting belief, they avoid the risk of failing to gain approval, but at a devastating cost. They trap themselves in a narrative of inadequacy, unable to envision a different path forward. Now zoom out further, to society itself. Cultural norms amplify these internal struggles on a collective scale. Think about the endless comparisons fostered by social media. Each curated post serves as a silent benchmark against which we measure ourselves. Are we successful enough, attractive enough, happy enough? The yardstick keeps shifting, leaving us perpetually behind. Adlerian psychology offers a counterpoint. Happiness doesn't come from comparing yourself to others. It comes from contributing meaningfully to the world around you. Yet breaking free of comparison requires courage, a willingness to step off the treadmill and define success on your terms. But herein lies the urgency. Staying trapped in this cycle isn't just painful, it's dangerous. Every day spent seeking validation chips away at your autonomy, leaving you increasingly disconnected from your authentic self. The longer you wait to confront this unseen force, the more entrenched it becomes. Imagine a tree growing roots deep into soil, poisoned by doubt and fear. Can it ever thrive? Or will it remain stunted, yearning for sunlight it can never reach? This brings us to a pivotal realization. Liberation begins with awareness. Recognizing the hidden mechanisms shaping your reality is the first step toward reclaiming agency. But awareness alone isn't enough. What tools can help dismantle these structures? What mindset shifts allow you to build a new foundation, one rooted in contribution rather than approval? These questions lead us closer to a breakthrough, one that challenges everything you thought you knew about happiness, identity, and freedom. What if the solution to unhappiness isn't found in fixing external circumstances, but in dismantling the internal framework that binds you? What if happiness doesn't require grand achievements, universal approval, or even perfection, but simply a shift in perspective? This radical reorientation begins with rejecting the notion that your worth is tied to others' opinions. It demands courage, not just to be disliked, but to redefine what it means to live authentically. As Kishimi and Koga argue, freedom lies not in being universally liked, but in embracing the inevitability of being disliked by some. But how does one summon such audacity? And what tools can help dismantle the invisible chains forged by years of conditioning? The first step is understanding that seeking approval is a choice, one you can unmake. Adlerian psychology posits that every emotion serves a goal, whether conscious or unconscious. If your default goal has been gaining validation, consider this. What would happen if you chose contribution instead? Kishimi and Koga suggest that true fulfillment arises when we focus on making others' lives better, not because it's virtuous, but because it makes us happier. Helping others becomes an act of self-love. It fulfills our innate desire to feel useful while liberating us from the exhausting pursuit of recognition. Imagine shifting your energy from worrying about how you're perceived to asking, "How can I add value here?" Suddenly, life transforms from a performance into a purposeful journey. Yet this transition requires confronting deeply ingrained fears. Fear of rejection, fear of failure, fear of insignificance. These emotions are natural but not immutable. They exist because they once served survival purposes. However, evolution didn't prepare us for modern complexities where social ostracism rarely threatens physical survival. Today, these fears often distort reality, amplifying minor disapproval into catastrophic judgments. To counteract this, Kishimi and Koga propose adopting a mindset rooted in contribution rather than comparison. When you stop viewing relationships as competitions and start seeing them as opportunities for mutual growth, envy dissipates, replaced by genuine joy in others' successes. Why resent someone else's triumph when their happiness enriches the collective whole? History offers powerful examples of individuals who rejected societal expectations to forge their own paths. Consider Vincent van Gogh, whose art was scorned during his lifetime, yet now resonates profoundly across generations. Or Rosa Parks, whose defiance against systemic oppression sparked monumental change despite fierce backlash. These figures weren't immune to criticism. They simply prioritized integrity over acceptance. Their stories remind us that legacy isn't built through appeasement but through conviction. By choosing goals aligned with personal values rather than external applause, they transcended fleeting judgments to leave enduring impacts. But let's address a common objection. Isn't seeking approval inherently human? Yes and no. While humans naturally crave connection, conflating approval with happiness is a misstep. Kishimi and Koga clarify that helping others brings joy precisely because it satisfies a deeper need within us, the awareness of being useful. Unlike conditional praise, which depends on meeting arbitrary standards, contribution fosters intrinsic satisfaction. Even small acts, a kind word, a listening ear, can affirm your value without requiring external validation. In fact, believing that your mere existence enriches others' lives reframes self-worth entirely. You don't need to achieve extraordinary feats to matter. Simply being present suffices. Of course, breaking free from approval-seeking habits isn't easy. It involves sitting with discomfort, tolerating uncertainty, and trusting yourself enough to chart an unconventional course. Start small. Notice moments when you adjust your behavior to please others. Ask yourself, am I acting out of authenticity or fear? Each time you choose courage over compliance, you strengthen your resolve. Over time, these incremental shifts compound, creating a new identity rooted in autonomy rather than dependency. This process also invites redefining success. Instead of measuring achievement through accolades or titles, focus on alignment with your core values. Are you living a life you deem meaningful? Do your actions reflect who you truly are? Remember, the ultimate judge of your life isn't society, it's you. By letting go of the need for external affirmation, you reclaim authorship of your story. Still, questions linger. How do you sustain this newfound freedom amidst inevitable criticism? What happens when old fears resurface, tempting you back into familiar patterns? These challenges hint at a deeper revelation, one that redefines not just how you interact with others, but how you perceive yourself. Because embedded within the answers lies a truth so profound it reshapes everything. Your essence isn't diminished by disapproval, it's illuminated by it. What if the final revelation about happiness isn't rooted in grand achievements or external validation, but in something far simpler, yet profoundly elusive? What if true freedom comes not from changing the world around you, but from transforming how you see yourself within it? This is where Kishimi and Koga's philosophy culminates, in a paradigm-shifting realization that redefines what it means to be human, to exist, and to matter. At its core lies an unsettling truth, one so counterintuitive it forces us to confront everything we thought we knew about worth, purpose, and fulfillment. Imagine standing before a mirror, stripped of titles, accolades, and societal roles. Who remains when all these layers are peeled away? For many, this question evokes discomfort because we've been conditioned to equate value with productivity, success, or approval. Yet, as Kishimi and Koga argue, your existence alone, your mere presence, is inherently valuable. You don't need to do anything extraordinary to justify being here. Simply by existing, you contribute to the tapestry of humanity. This idea challenges one of our deepest fears, that we are only as worthy as our accomplishments. But consider this: if your worth were contingent on achievement, wouldn't happiness always feel just out of reach, perpetually tied to the next milestone? By shifting focus from doing to being, you reclaim your essence, untethered from judgment or comparison. This perspective also reframes relationships. When you no longer view life as a competition, a zero-sum game where someone else's success diminishes yours, you begin to celebrate others without envy. Kishimi and Koga emphasize that happy people understand abundance. There's enough joy, enough love, enough meaning for everyone. Why resent another's triumph when their happiness enriches the collective whole? This shift dissolves resentment and fosters genuine connection. Relationships become acts of mutual contribution rather than transactional exchanges. A kind word, a listening ear, these small gestures carry profound weight because they stem from authenticity, not obligation. In doing so, you create bonds unburdened by expectations, freeing both yourself and others to simply exist together. But perhaps the most revolutionary insight lies in self-acceptance. Unhappy individuals often cling to limiting beliefs that they're flawed, unworthy, incapable of change. These narratives trap them in cycles of fear and self-doubt. However, Kishimi and Koga remind us that humans aren't defined by past traumas or mistakes. We are shaped by the meaning we assign to them. Every experience carries potential, not just pain, but growth. Even failure becomes fertile ground for reinvention. The key lies in choosing goals aligned with your values, not dictated by societal pressures. When you stop seeking approval and start pursuing contribution, you step into alignment with your true self. And paradoxically, this alignment brings peace, not because the world changes, but because you do. Now, let's return to the central paradox. To find happiness, you must accept the inevitability of being disliked. This isn't a call to indifference, but to courage. The audacity to live authentically despite inevitable criticism. As Adlerian psychology teaches, emotions serve goals. If your goal shifts from gaining approval to embracing freedom, fear loses its grip. Imagine walking through life unencumbered by the weight of others' opinions. How light would your steps feel? How vast would your possibilities seem? This liberation doesn't mean rejecting connection. It means engaging with the world on your terms, offering your unique gifts without apology. And here lies the ultimate revelation. Happiness isn't a destination, it's a decision. It's choosing to believe in your inherent worth, regardless of external circumstances. It's finding joy in the present moment while working toward future aspirations. It's understanding that your impact on others isn't measured by grand gestures, but by the quiet ripples of kindness, empathy, and presence. Each breath you take affirms your place in the universe, a place no one can take from you. So, I leave you with this haunting, poetic truth. The chains binding you have always been invisible because they reside within. Break them, and you'll discover that freedom tastes sweeter than any applause, deeper than any accolade. Stand tall, knowing that your existence matters, not because others say so, but because you say so. Let this awareness guide your actions, shape your relationships, and illuminate your path forward. Because now, armed with this knowledge, you hold the power to rewrite your story, to step boldly into the unknown, unafraid of who might cheer or jeer along the way.
Thank you for watching this video. I hope it was insightful and educative. If you like this video, do well to click like, share, and subscribe for more insightful videos like this. See you later. Bye.